All right, Bob. I think we are live. Bobby Digital, Zach here. Happy to be here with Wolf Sports, previewing, breaking down the college football playoff semifinals. We are down to the final four for college football. I think we can safely say that now. It's been pretty exciting, fun journey to get here, as opposed to, normally this is where it starts. The last several years, this is where the playoffs have started.
We wouldn't have
At this
had
point,
these four teams.
yeah, right. And great point. Right. So, think about how much kind of debates and conversations and bets and games that we've had really to even get to this point. So I guess we'll start kind of there. Here's kind of what we're looking at, and not necessarily. I don't know that there's crazy surprises here, but at the same time, as you said, perhaps not the four teams that we would have expected. If the season would have just ended, when they would have just gone straight into four teams, this would not have been the four teams we ended up with. So before we kind of dive into these two big matchups, what are your, I guess, just primary takeaways on what we've seen so far?
Ultimately, I think the 12-team playoffs working. We're getting through to, better find the best team in the country, whoever that is. Obviously, Oregon didn't get the best draw for themselves, earning, the number one seed, going 13-0 in the regular season. Tough draw there, but just like with the NCAA tournament and some other things, that's how brackets fall sometimes. I do think the bye sentiment, with all four bye teams losing, is a little overrated in that sense. For example, prior to the Tennessee game, Ohio State had 21 days of rest before facing Tennessee between the Michigan and Tennessee games, and Oregon had 24 between the Big Ten title game against Penn State and they're getting the Rose Bowl game against Ohio State. So each team kind of had that layoff, and many of the at-large teams, Indiana, similar time frame, playing Notre Dame, so that would have been 20 days in that game. Clemson had a little bit shorter turnaround, SMU, but Notre Dame also played USC same day as Ohio State played Michigan, so they would have had 21 days as well. Georgia, Boise, they all played conference title games the following week, so it just kind of shifted which days teams had off, essentially.
Yeah, and I'd say, obviously a lot of people
games.
complained and griped about the blowouts, but we see blowouts in the NFL playoffs too. And that's actually a structured system on how to get there. It's not, there's no at-large bids into the NFL playoffs. So, that's just kind of the nature of what happens when you get this deep into the season. Some of the top end teams are just that much better than some of the other teams that might sneak in, whether deserving or not. So, like you said, I think that this system is great. I do think we'll probably still end up seeing it get expanded further out, likely to 16. A lot of that might have to do with the almighty dollar, as they say, because it's more games, more money, more TV spots, more, and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it's better for the fans, and, ultimately it's more football. So we are not complaining about that. So what we will do, so we'll get right into it. Starting off, we have, and as I said earlier this morning on the space, we have 5 days of playoff football kicking off tomorrow. 2 of those are college football, and then the next 3 are the NFL. But tomorrow night, Thursday night, starting out with the Orange Bowl, Ohio State, Notre Dame and Penn State. The line has kind of fluctuated slightly here and there. Right now, it's sitting at Penn State being favored by, or a 1-point underdog, total around 45. Penn State teams can, people can say, their critics can say they may have not had the easiest path or the most difficult path getting here, right? They knocked off SMU and Boise State, both in convincing fashion. Notre Dame knocked off Indiana, and then beat Georgia, albeit with their backup quarterback. So these are two teams that, the way I see it, they like to win. They've kind of dominated their matchups in the trenches, both offensively and defensively. So I guess we will start there because now who's going to ultimately win that battle. That's something that we will kind of dive into here. But I don't know, what were your kind of general takeaways about either of these teams in their quarterfinal matchups?
Yeah, for sure. I thought, we'll start with Notre Dame. Really impressed by their defensive line in that we talked about here on the space. We bet the ETN over rushing yards, kind of based on the trench advantage we thought Georgia had with Notre Dame's defensive line being a little undersized. They performed quite well in that and forced Georgia with a young quarterback making his first start to make them beat him. They saw 2 turnovers in that game. I thought he played okay overall, so Gunnar Stockton did, but I was impressed by Notre Dame's rush defense and that kind of containing Georgia a little bit, making them, a little bit more one-dimensional, make Gunnar Stockton actually truly, do a little bit more than Georgia wanted to with their game plan. So I thought that was good, especially considering Notre Dame's, quite frankly, just okay against the run. They're around, 50th in success rate against the run on defense there. Another game where Notre Dame's offense I was a little underwhelmed by, again, spammed Riley Leonard's legs. We'll talk about that a little bit more in this game breakdown of that. So a little underwhelmed there. You saw special teams touchdown, the kickoff return, as well as a short field touchdown right before the half that kind of flipped that game, and 13-point game on the scoreboard. That was 14 points right there. So really a coin flip, even lower scoring game than it was at 23-10, but that's one that where special teams matter. And we talked about that a little bit too. And Notre Dame special teams matched up there. As far as Penn State goes, I thought they actually did better in the box score than what we kind of saw on the field and the scoreboard. I thought Boise was quite frankly fortunate to only lose by 17. Alar fumbled on his own read exchange. The Genty fumble that was punched out, recovered by Boise. They later scored a touchdown. That would have made it, if Penn State recovers that fumble, that could make it 21-0 Penn State, and then we're off and running. Plus, defensive end Abdul Carter leaving the game, missing the last 2.5 quarters. You saw Boise's offensive success rate, just general success, I should say, really step up after Carter leaving the game. Lose your best defensive player. We think he's gonna play based on his tweets this week. But yeah, those are kind of some big takeaways. Still looking to, as you mentioned, Penn State's path hasn't been the strongest, but I thought they performed admirably against Boise.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, that was one thing that we had kind of talked about was in the last stream, liking Penn State to kind of win big. Now, granted, I think Boise did provide a little bit stiffer of a challenge than maybe we were anticipating. But at the end of the day, I mean, Penn State still kind of got us there. They were still a little bit of a tick up, I guess, from the Boise States of the world. And that's ultimately why they were kind of able to kind of coast. And as you mentioned, Abdul Carter, more likely than not, I mean, this guy, he's definitely going to be playing on Sundays, likely a high end first round draft pick. Seems like he's going to play, which is great. It's what you want to see. You definitely want to see the best players out there on the field playing. Another thing that I'll kind of mention is, there's a lot of talk about Ashton Genty, but this game is going to feature 2 of the better and really, I mean, frankly, less heralded running backs in the country in, Nick Singleton and Jeremiah Love. I mean, these guys are both also going to be NFL guys. And while they maybe haven't had the same fanfare and hype around them that Genty has, these guys are every bit just, you could make the case these guys are just as talented as him. So we can start there, I guess, with Notre Dame. When Notre Dame has the ball, what kind of key advantages are you looking for?
I think the first thing I think about considering it, looking at the schedule, Penn State hasn't faced a ton of mobile quarterbacks this year. In general, Garrett Green in the season opener of West Virginia is kind of the most applicable one of that. He was bottled up in that matchup, but I don't think that's a fully great comparison just because Penn State had a full offseason of prep with that. So if I'm Penn State, I want a game plan to make sure anything except Riley Leonard's legs beat me in this game. We, like I mentioned in kind of the recap, Notre Dame spammed quarterback run in that game versus Georgia, and it was ultimately the vocal point of every key offensive play in that game. You mentioned Jeremiah Love, who's a running back. We're really high on. He's going to play on Sundays eventually. He's still got some years in college left, but he's hurt. He has quite frankly, a big knee brace on his knee. We've seen his prop unders get absolutely blasted this week in kind of lead up to this game. Really think he's going to be ineffective in this one and is going to be a big factor. You're going to see the running back price. He actually had more carries than Love in the game against Georgia. I think he's going to continue to play a big role in that game. So really concerned about Jeremiah Love there. Mentioned Abdul Carter. Looked like a shoulder injury. James Franklin's pretty coy with injuries, so we haven't heard anything official. But as you know, Zach, I'm not a movie guy, but Carter's tweeting these like healing chamber Star Wars tweets that I've had to like go through the mentions to try and figure out what they mean because I don't know. I don't watch movies.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna play. He's gonna be suited up. As to, I guess you can always make the case as to how effective he'll be, or if he'll be 100%, full go. But he's going to be suited up and he's going to be out there on the field at least in some capacity, which I can only view as a positive for the Penn State defense.
Right, exactly. So even in a decoy role where he's slightly less effective, that's still going to mean a lot. Like I mentioned, Boise's offense had all of their success in the final 2.5 quarters of that game after he left. They'll need him to. That Notre Dame offensive line is top 20 in line yards created in the ground game. So good offensive line despite some early and late August injuries for them. As we mentioned a couple times, Notre Dame's not a great late down offense. Top 90 passing success rate. Riley Leonard's really struggled on balls 15 plus yards down the field throwing the ball. So they'll need to stay ahead of. I'll just keep saying this every time we have a Notre Dame breakdown here. But they're going to need to stay ahead of schedule. They're not a good third and long offense. And kind of going back to a point I mentioned against Georgia, these were the scoring drives to kind of go back and kind of mention the short fields that Notre Dame kind of had against Georgia to put up their 23 points. 8 plays, 49 yards field goal. 10 plays, 32 yards field goal. 1 play, 13 yards, touchdown. That was right before the half. 8 plays, 29 yards, field goal. And then, of course, the kickoff return. That's how they got their other one. If Penn State can win these early downs and Jeremiah Love is banged up as much as we think he is, I really have a hard time seeing Notre Dame offense have a ton of success here.
Well, and that's the thing, that game, I mean, Notre Dame's offense had done absolutely nothing the entire first half of that game with Georgia, and neither had Georgia, to be fair. Nobody had done anything, and that game flipped pretty quickly on just a couple of, they weren't fluky, they forced some turnovers, they made plays on defense and put themselves in advantageous spots. And then they capitalized on it, and it really flipped the game entirely, right?
I was surprised with a young quarterback, Kirby. I'm trying to remember like the time in the clock, but it was 30 or 40 seconds left in the first half. He got aggressive, which usually, I usually give credit. I was still surprised he made the decision, and I'm not overly criticizing that. I'm just surprised he made that decision to kind of go for it. Stockton fumbles, and then that quickly turns into the 1 play 13-yard touchdown drive, and then just by happenstance, the opening play of the second half's a kickoff return, right. And then boom, that's 14 points for Notre Dame in 90 game seconds,
Yeah, it was a really quick flip, and it kind of put Georgia, I'm not going to say it immediately made them one-dimensional, but the urgency ramped up. And let's be honest, I mean, with Carson Beck or without, or even with Gunnar Stockton, this team struggled to push the ball down the field through the
They
air
couldn't
all year
catch.
long. Right.
Couldn't
Like
catch.
they struggled in the passing game all year long. So, when they were immediately with the way those turnovers kind of happened, and then they were kind of backed up against it. They were put in a position where they had to be more aggressive, and they hadn't really been able to pass much all year long. It was just not a good combination, and it really set Notre Dame up well to, essentially be a little bit more conservative. And then they may have the really really smart special teams play late by Marcus Freeman,
Oh
where he kind of
yes. Yep.
flustered them with the substitutions and all that. So yeah,
Huge to Freeman for that.
yeah, right. And like I said, it wasn't like it was a domination by Notre Dame by any means. It was a really neck and neck game, really tight, somewhat of a stalemate. Right. And at the end of the day, there was a couple of just really big key plays that ended up going Notre Dame's way. And that ultimately tilted the scales and really favored them, I guess, to be able to kind of impose their own, kind of dictate the game plan from that point forward. So I guess we'll flip around to the other side of the ball. Because what I was going to say is on that front, had that gone the other way, had Georgia had those plays go their way, I would probably have some concerns about Notre Dame being able to do some downfield passing themselves, right? However, we might see that a little bit here. So when Penn State has the ball, what do you like? What kind of advantages do you see with Penn State on offense?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the coaching matchup here between defensive coordinator Al Golden of Notre Dame and then Penn State offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. Just a clash of styles, two really good coaches. Really excited to see how that chess match plays out. Just kind of starting, that's kind of a little CFB nerd brain right there. But starting with the Irish, like I mentioned, the Notre Dame defensive line impressed me against Georgia. Undersized in comparison to Georgia. I think we mentioned 40-pound difference between the offensive line and the defensive lines in that game. And like you mentioned in the open, it's going to be a key that continues. The top Notre Dame's just outside the top, like right around top 50 in rushing success rate allowed and EPA per rush. And Penn State's running back duo of Allen and Singleton, the only running back duo in the country to each have 1,000 yards rushing apiece. So that's going to be very key. One thing I did notice, Boise did start to confuse Penn State's offensive line and protection schemes with some stunts. It's not a great pass blocking offensive line. Al Golden uses some NFL-like schemes with his defense, and it can get really creative, sending real and simulated pressures, and could confuse both Alar, who I don't know how good he is in picking up protections yet. I'm not sure, and if he confuses that offensive line, that'll be key. One thing Alar does a really good job of is limiting turnover-worthy plays. He only has a couple on the season. However, the flaw of that is he doesn't really throw the ball away, and he takes a little bit more sacks than he wants to. And with an offense we've talked about with Penn State that is more success rate driven instead of the explosive play, that kind of affects you. If you take an extra sack, get into third and long, that'll hurt you. Another key matchup in this one, and we've talked about all-world Mackey award-winning tight end Tyler Warren of Penn State. Kind of does everything for them, even lines up at Wildcat quarterback. Notre Dame has really good safeties with Watts and Schuler, all-American type caliber, and honestly really good coverage linebackers too. They've done really good defending the tight end. Now this is a different beast, obviously. You have the best tight end in the country, or the second best if you like Harold Fan and a Bowling Green. But that'll be really interesting how that plays out. They'll be able to use a bunch of different guys to try and cover Warren and limit that from just being a game breaker like he typically is. Again, this really applies to both sides of the ball here, but whose wide receivers win one-on-one battles more? Notre Dame obviously has better secondary, I believe, than Penn State, but both receiving cores leave something to be desired here. But I do see more paths to offensive success for Penn State, just because I do like their wide receivers a little bit more. I do think Allen and Singleton can have success, and ultimately, Alar's a better thrower than Riley Leonard.
Yeah.
So I do see a little bit more paths. So I think in general, Penn State has a little bit higher of an offensive ceiling than Notre Dame does.
And that's kind of what I was getting at is, we know that Leonard can get things done on the ground. He's been able to, at least from time to time this season. But when push comes to shove, if you get in a situation like Georgia was against Notre Dame, and like I said, if that had been tilted the other way, I don't know how much faith I would have in him to be able to kind of push the ball down the field. I think if Penn State were in that predicament, they would have a better chance. Like kind of to your point, I think they at least have a better chance of succeeding on the pass game. I mean, both these teams obviously have, like we said, we've covered elite running backs, good cover, good running schemes. They want to kind of impose their will on the ground, but at the end of the day, to win games, you're going to ultimately end up having to pass at some point. And
For sure.
I do think Penn State, I agree with you that Penn State has a better path towards, offensive success through the air than Notre Dame does.
Sure. That there is one more factor with this game that I'm going to mention. Penn State, and this is a big factor. Penn State has 2 extra days to prepare for this game. Penn State played December 31st in the Fiesta Bowl. Notre Dame obviously was planned to play New Year's Day in the Sugar Bowl as the last game. So first game versus last game of the quarterfinals. And of course, the unfortunate terror attack in New Orleans that delayed the game, 20 hours or so, pushed that game back an additional day. So while Notre Dame has like the traditional 7-day week to do that, Penn State has 2 extra days to kind of get ready. And of course, just any mental health toll of maybe having family themselves in an area of where that happened, that would kind of create, just, you hate to talk about this kind of stuff, but that could create some little advantage for Penn State.
Yeah. I think we're splitting hairs maybe at that point.
Any effect.
Right.
If it has any effect, it's going to help Penn State. It could be a zero.
Sure. I will say, when you're looking for edges or maybe advantages, it is, as you mentioned, kind of in the opener, which, all 4 of these teams remaining have played the exact same amount of games. Now, granted, I mean, some teams have won more with the conference championship. Notre Dame, I guess, technically has played the fewest of anybody here, but as far as playoff games go, once the playoffs started, none of the bye week teams advanced. So everybody who is remaining, these 4 teams left remaining, all were there in the opening round. Yep. So, there's not really going to be any advantages there. So with these advantages in mind, what have we seen in the market, in the betting markets, and then get into maybe some of the bets that you like?
Yeah, for sure. So particularly unique one with this game, I think, on the total. Sharpbook in Vegas, circa, opened as high as 50 on the total. FanDuel, domestic book, opened 44.5. So you saw it kind of get to the middle there at 46.5 for a day or two. Then a couple days ago, we saw a wave of under money, taking it down to 45.5. I did see a 45.5. Did see a 44.5 briefly in market, kind of getting all the way down there. Overall, I do agree with that under move, but I think we're at the correct number now. I don't think we see too much there. As far as the side goes, Notre Dame -1.5 was the prevailing opener. It did get bet out to 2.5 before being completely taken out about midday yesterday with a massive Penn State buy. I know some sharp groups were buying some, even where the 2.5s were, there was cheap buys to 3. I think that was happening a little bit too. I was personally hoping for a full 3 myself on that one. I know I wasn't the only one, but I think there could be another wave of Notre Dame money. We did see them take a bunch of money right before kick and actually close a favorite against Georgia. And then I know some other pros and modelers that have their numbers really like Notre Dame. So I wouldn't be surprised if as limits raise and the market's kind of now down below where it opened at. I wouldn't be surprised to see it another little bit tick on Notre Dame, but you're never getting that 3 in this game as far as the mark goes. As far as myself, I did bet Penn State, and I still think it's good right now. So if I were you and you don't have a bet on this game, I would wait closer to game time, see if that Notre Dame money comes in, and I would bet the best Penn State money line for purposes of this show. I'll say Penn State money line plus 100 or plus 1 minus 110. Either one, I'm fine with either one on that. So we'll grade one of those for best bet purposes. But I like the Nittany Lions in this one. As mentioned, a couple days extra rest. Think there's just more pathways for them to kind of have success on offense and ultimately get it done.
Yeah, and I think I mean I agree with you. If I haven't taken a side here yet, I probably will end up on Penn State. To just be honest, I know we did a little trading on totals, right away on the opener. We found a little discrepancy there. I took some under 47.5 and then kind of arbed that a little bit, I guess, with some over 45.5 when that dropped down. So it's kind of settled now as we're seeing around that 45.5 range. So, feel okay about my under 47.5 position, but, who knows? Like things can get kind of wonky in these games, but yeah, ultimately, I think I do agree. Penn State is the side here to back. So, with that, we will move on to the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State facing off against Texas. 2 games that could not have gone in more opposite directions. In their last matchup, where the Texas came in as a pretty large favorite over Arizona State, kind of got out to a big lead early, and then Arizona State just battled their way all the way back, had some trick plays, a little razzle dazzle, and a lot of scatterbo to get all the way into overtime. And ultimately, they kind of had themselves in position where they could have won the game. Texas ended up kind of surviving and I guess catching their breath a little bit. But, I can't, you kind of left the game not feeling like super great, I guess, about Texas's performance. On the contrary, Ohio State came in a game that was viewed by nearly everybody, including us, as a coin flip game that could go either way. I think ultimately, if we had to choose, we both slightly leaned to Ohio State based on our conversation, but by no means did we feel like, oh my God, Ohio State is just a convincingly dominant team over Oregon, which is exactly what happened. They came in, that was a game everyone was excited about. We couldn't wait to watch, and it was just a complete dud right away. I mean, it was like
immediately.
Right. I mean, from the minute that we switched over from the overtime game that ran long, right away, it's like Ohio State had already scored and they had the ball again, and then they scored again, and it's like, what's going on here? It's like, and Oregon just kind of got hit by a freight train and never was able to respond. So, with that in mind, I know that we obviously were kind of texting back and forth quite a bit during those games. And I just immediately was like, hey, I mean, this Ohio State team has kind of elevated themselves to a different level. I was starting to see things that reminded me of the US or the LSU team when they had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, just a team that's just, there's NFL players out there, and not just NFL players, but NFL difference makers. When you talk about Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith, right, at wide receiver, who these guys, they're not even eligible for the draft, and they would both be top 5 picks if they entered the draft right now. So I think we're just operating at a different level here with Ohio State right now. So we're going to go opposite direction here. I mean, what have you seen, I guess, in the market in this matchup here, Ohio State, Texas?
Yeah,
because I think I was going to say right away, we were both ready to place bets on Ohio State, anything under 6, I think we were ready for. But yeah, go ahead.
For different reasons, by the way. For very different reasons.
Right.
So, and this is the reason why I want to start with the market here, and everything kind of generally boils down to the right, making the right number. But even in the middle of this Oregon Ohio State game, we started texting back and forth about what the opener versus Texas is going to be. I started talking with other bettors. You saw discourse on Twitter of what this opener is going to be, and you got a varying bunch of different opinions. And that's mostly because, quite frankly, it becomes a giant push-pull, and you had these dynamics. You have all the season-long data of Ohio State and Texas full season performances, and I'm admittingly going to go long here. So, but so you have the full season dynamics of that, and then so you have Texas clearly getting downgraded after the performance against Arizona State, going to double overtime. So obviously a ton of concerning things there, and then you're seeing, you made the comparison, this Death Star. I keep referring to another Star Wars reference, I guess, but this Death Star Ohio State team clearly playing to the full potential that we saw and thought that this very talented roster could play to, and we're like, oh God, here it is. But that's not a part of the regular season number. So if you are part and kind of valuing more recency in your numbers, then you're going to make Ohio State a bigger favorite in this one because you're valuing most recent performances. Well, as you're weighting all the games equally and all that stuff, you're going to get a number that probably shows value on Texas. And that was kind of the crux of kind of where the openers were. So it just became this very interesting discussion. Quite frankly, our modeled numbers are less than the current market. Like we're around in the low 4 range for us on that. But I also understand that there's completely different market dynamic and something else happening here that isn't just like, hey, go blind bet my number here. So with the market, kind of getting back to that. So that's kind of the push pull on that. You saw openers ranging from 4.5 to 6.5, and we're currently settled at 5.5. Yes, we bet some 4.5 immediately on an opener because we saw the people who were saying it was going to be 6, and those people were super smart and have a ton of influence, and we're like, okay, this thing's going to at least go to 6.5 anyway. It did. It kind of settled there for a couple days, and now has since kind of been bought back to that 5.5 range. But that was just kind of on my end, kind of playing, hey, I know the number is going to go one way. I'm just going to play it and figure it out later. And I don't have a strong take on the side, surprising at the number, kind of based on what I've already said. And you kind of wanted to bet Ohio State because you're like, this team's we're seeing 2019 LSU stuff. Like, I want, I just want Ohio State. I want a piece of this essentially. So, and both those things I think are generally correct, but I think that's where this game kind of starts and becomes so fascinating as you have, this number's nowhere near this if this game was played last week. And you're just seeing this crazy dynamic. And I think it's really telling now that we know there's 2 factions here. Some people did there was a buy at 6.5, taking it down to 5.5. We know there's people who are weighing the recency metrics and going, yep, we want Ohio State. And some people who don't care what number there is, they want to buy them. So we got the 2 separate factions. I'm really interested to see and I don't know where the market's going to go, just to be honest here. I have no clue which way it's going to tip here, where I have kind of inkling on the Notre Dame Penn State game and some of the other games. But I don't know where the market's going to go here. I'll be very interested in the next move as limits continue to rise and we get closer to game day on Friday. That'll be really telltale sign of kind of where the models and where the smartest people in the space are really, really kind of thinking with this one.
Yeah, and I do think, at least as far as our handicap goes, this is much more of a reflection. I was going to say this is much more of a reflection of Ohio State than it is being about, oh, well, Texas, kind of struggled a little bit in. There we go. Texas struggled a little bit in their game late against. Audio is kind of weird there, but uh, Texas struggled against Arizona State. They saw a little resistance there and kind of had to squeak it out, whereas Ohio State was dominant. And I think we do put a lot more stock into the Ohio State dominance than we do the Texas, because like I said, ultimately early on, Texas kind of got out and we immediately thought, oh, like they're going to run away with this. And they didn't. They weren't able to. So I don't think that either of us are necessarily down on Texas. I think we still kind of maintain our same view on them that we've held all season. And that kind of goes, I was surprised that we did see as much Ewers. I thought at some point maybe we would see a little bit more Arch Manning in that game. We didn't. We didn't see him out there really. So I don't know so we'll kind of go through our the kind of the same way as before. So when Texas has the ball, as we said, with Quinn Ewers, whether it's Quinn Ewers or Arch out there, what are you expecting to see out there? Advantages with Texas on offense?
Yeah, and I do think that we've kind of talked a couple of times about will we.
All right, so I don't know what happened. Whenever you talk, your audio, it's just there's no talking. It's just all scratchy. So
How's this? Testing.
you might be able to just go no headphones. Just go no headphones, maybe. See if you can just go straight audio.
All right, how's this? Better?
Oh, man.
Better? No? No.
Yeah. Not good. Hold on. There we go.
We're good here.
No. It's just whenever you open your mouth and speak, it's nothing but static. It's kind of crazy.
Oh no. Shit.
Here, let's try this. All right, here. Let's give another shot here. Yeah, sorry about that. We will sort through some of the audio and see if we can get this to work. All right. Try to unmute and see what we have.
All right. What do we got here?
Oh God. It's I'm sorry, man. It's really, really bad. Like whenever you talk, you can't.
I'll leave and come back.
Yeah. Let's try that. Yeah, let's give that a shot. All right, so he's going to try to get back with us here as we sort through some of the audio. No big deal. As we were saying, Texas is they have a dominant defensive line. I think offensively, they obviously are always going to have weapons on the outside. Some of their receivers, they're obviously going to have good running backs to speak of. So, Quinn Ewers, however you feel about him, he ultimately still is an NFL prospect. And then even if he were to go down or they were to potentially, make a switch over to Arch, obviously we kind of know to some extent what to expect there. So, all right, let's see if we can get Bob back up here. Hopefully the audio situation. Oh man, it doesn't sound good.
Oh, no. No. Not great. No.
No. Not at all. What's that? Whatever you just did might have worked.
Oh, really? This?
Oh man. No. I don't know. Maybe try if you have a laptop or an iPad or a different device, whatever you're on, maybe just try to switch because I don't know what happened. That audio is you'll listen back at some point and you'll see it's just not a good situation. But yeah, so what do we think? All right. So I'll go through some of the notes here. Maybe we'll get Bob back to do some of get some of his best bets, perhaps, hopefully. But yeah, Texas rush offense. We've kind of talked about them from time to time over the weeks. We've complimented them, and it does seem that they're the game kind of goes as Texas's running offense goes. So if they are not able to establish the ground game, they do tend to kind of struggle. So the unfortunate part to that is that Ohio State poses one of the toughest rushing defenses, and is probably one of the more challenging rushing front fours that they have seen, if not the best that they've seen all year long. So I do expect that I think Texas is going to certainly try to establish the run game, as they know that predicates a lot of their offensive success. But I'm not entirely certain that that they're going to be able to impose their will the way that they maybe are accustomed to. All right, let's give this a shot. Let's see. Bob, are you there? No, not there yet. That's fine. Anyway, so Isaiah Bond, yeah, the wide receiver, the talented wide receiver for Texas on the outside. We talked about him in the last preview. We were pretty certain he would play. He did technically play. He was not targeted. He was only out there for 22 snaps, which is not many in a 2 overtime game. So there are certainly still questions around his status and availability. Is he going to be healthy this time around? Is he just a decoy out there running routes? I would certainly keep an eye out there as to Isaiah Bond, that guy's, he's a big time playmaker that for Texas's offense that they rely on. So, as we said with the quarterback position, when it comes to Quinn Ewers, he probably makes more turnover worthy plays than big plays that are plus EV for the offense. But, I don't know that he's going to find as much success as he's hoping for against this Ohio State cover 2, especially, as we said, with a difference maker like Caleb Downs out there roaming at safety. So here, let's see what we got here.
Did this work? Away your face.
Dude, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. This is very bizarre. It's just a tough audio situation.
Oh, you want me to do?
Anyway. All right. Well, I will. We'll keep moving forward with that. But when Ohio State has the ball, as we've talked about with Chip Kelly coming in as the offensive coordinator here, he has certainly leveled up their offense. They ironically, in the last game, we talked about how Ohio State was prone to slow starts with Chip Kelly, and they certainly did not start off slow in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. They got out fast. They got out quick. They built up a big lead right away, and they did not look back. So, they've been using a lot more motion, certainly in the Tennessee game, to try to get matchups, and the Tennessee secondary was very confused and kind of discombobulated by that, by the motion on the Ohio State offense. We saw a lot of those same concepts from the Buckeyes against Oregon, and they were just kind of moving guys around. Oregon wasn't really sure kind of what to expect. They just kind of looked generally confused, which ultimately led to just guys being wide open. And as we said, game breakers like Jeremiah Smith just kind of running rampant all over the defense, kind of, getting open at will. And when you get the ball in a guy like that's hands, obviously he's going to do some damage. So, hold on, let's see. Man, I can always tell when you get back because it's just. Let's see, Bob.
Yeah. So, can you hear me?
Man. Tough time with the audio tonight. So, again, sorry about that, but as we said, we'll move on with the preview. Hopefully Bob can either rejoin us or maybe just kind of go Bobby Digital can become Bobby Analog and fire in some messages to us that way. So, but the Ohio State offensive line, which we have covered over several weeks in some of these previews that we've been doing, has now kind of put their best to perform. I mean, it's been a concern for them all year long, but now back-to-back games, their offensive line has looked better than it's looked all season long. So, and this is against two very good, highly regarded defensive lines in Tennessee and Oregon. So, with that, they've also kind of made some adjustments in the running game. They're using a little bit more misdirection and counters at they're not just using a primarily zone running scheme that they kind of employed mostly during the season. So we've seen some adjustments from Ohio State offensively, specifically in the run game, that has certainly seemed to have unlocked their rushing attack and has put their offensive line in a better position to succeed ultimately. So, Texas, their defense is normally built to stop these type of modern offensive runs. That's kind of what they design themselves to do, as they see a lot of this type of offenses in the SEC. But I don't know, with their zone defense, these Ohio State wide receivers, I feel like are kind of set up well to find the holes in the zone defense, and it's ultimately going to be up to Will Howard as to whether he can kind of deliver the ball and find these guys in open space. So this Texas defense they have great metrics. You're not going to find a lot of things to talk badly about. Texas defense has been dominant really all year long. They've, if not the best, they're certainly no worse than a top 3 defense, really wire to wire all season long. And we haven't seen a whole lot really to deter us from that stance, despite some of the things we might have seen in the Arizona State game. I don't know. All right, Bob, let's give it another shot. Let's give it a shot.
Please. No. I've tried everything. My apologies to everyone. I'm listening on another screen, though. Zach's doing a great job giving kind of the breakdown.
Yeah. I have no idea. I mean, maybe I can't imagine that it's just my audio that's hearing that. It's really, really bad. Let me see. All right, give it a shot. Let's see.
All right, how does this work?
Oh God. It's so bad. It's so bad. I'm sorry, man. It's so bad. just at a complete loss. I have no idea how to. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, you can stick around, maybe nod in approval, maybe from time to time. Give me some thumbs up if you like what I'm saying. Maybe type in some of your best bets into the chat. I will do our best to kind of go through some of our notes. That we put together here. So anyway, like we were saying, the Texas defense certainly very impressive. But I think this Ohio State offense is just a little bit of a different beast. They do have some matchup advantages that I think they will be able to kind of keep the offensive success rolling. And assuming that Ryan Day kind of stays aggressive, I think that's kind of where we stand here. So as far as we already kind of covered the market. The side, like we said, we kind of got down on some Ohio State -4.5. It has since gone up. We've seen some 5.5. We've seen some 6. We're certainly not seeing any 7s because at that point, I think we're both coming back on Texas a little bit there. If you see a 7 at any point, barring something just crazy, obviously take that 7. But I don't think we're going to see that. As far as the total, it's just kind of stuck, kind of hovering around that 53.5 all week. I took over right away, just as I did with the last Ohio State game, just because I think that in these bigger games, we tend to see higher scoring games, but I don't know. The total hasn't moved any in the last game. It worked out. This one, it hasn't. So what I will say, as you sent over here, Bob's best bet for this game is the Texas team total under 23.5. So despite me liking the over at 53.5, Bob likes the Texas team total under 23.5, which means I'll probably need 35 points from Ohio State at least to get me home there. So for us both to hit, which, it's not impossible, not unthinkable. But like I said, I think this Ohio State defense or Ohio State offense has been very impressive, and their defense has certainly not been any less impressive either. So with that, again, sorry for some of the difficulties here. We will certainly get those sorted out for the next one. And, Bob, if you had any other, signs you wanted to give us or anything else. No, that works. We'll get it sorted out. It'll be all good. Certainly by we have some more Wolf Spaces this week. And after we get the college football final, once we get the championship finalized, we'll probably dig into that and maybe do a little bit of a preview for some of these NFL playoff games as well. So, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Apologies again for the difficulties. That'll get fixed. And then we will see you on the next one. And that actually, I'll go ahead and we will say the next Wolf Space tomorrow. We're not doing the 4 p.m. anymore. So we have tomorrow, 7 p.m. They will be breaking down they're doing a live stream with a little bit of esports conversation, some exciting guests there. And then at 8 p.m., we'll be doing a space that being hosted by Novig. So I'll be joining in with that, and we will be participating and hearing a little bit about their platform, which maybe you can take some of our advice here and get some action down in the Novig app. So Friday 8 p.m. Saturday we have more as well. Saturday 8 p.m. Sunday 11 a.m. for this NFL preview. So like we said, 5 straight days of playoff football starting today. We hope you will be there watching with us and joining in all of our content the rest of this week. So thank you everyone. Thank you, Bob. And we will see you next time.